Hello, right?
Hello?
Hello, I can hear you now.
Oh, now I can hear you. Awesome. Well, how's it going?
Yeah, not too bad, you?
I'm doing great. Thank you very much for taking the time to do this interview.
Ah, that's all right, no problem at all, mate.
Oh, awesome. Well, it's great to be able to talk to you and be able to talk about some brand new music from the Infernal Sea. Of course, it's been out almost a couple weeks now through Candlelight Records. I've gotten the chance to be able to check out this album before the release, thanks to a promo, and been able to keep spinning it since. And I just love everything about this album from start to finish. Just the style, the lyrics, everything that's going on here. It just feels like a fantastic album.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, it seems to be going down really well. It seems to be well received, which is great. So it's good to hear feedback like that and that people are actually really digging this album.
Oh, for sure. So, with that in mind, I mean, what's it like to have this album out for almost 2 weeks now?
Yeah, it's a great feeling. I mean, we were sat on this album for quite a long time. Our last album, Negotiating Crucis, was 2020. So, it's been 4 years since, technically 4 years since the last release. So we'd actually written and recorded this album quite a while ago. And then we were just sat on it for a little while, waiting for the right time and the right label and stuff. So yeah, to actually have it out, in the wild now is a great feeling. And as I just said, like the way it's being received as well is it feels great too, because people are really digging this album. So it just goes that it was a long labor of love. So yeah, to finally have it released is fantastic.
Oh, for sure. And of course, the ones that were able to release the album through Candlelight Records, I mean, what a perfect label to be able to put an album like this out on. It just feels like it's right at home with it.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we've had our eye on Candlelight and vice versa for quite a long time. So, the planets aligned, and it just made sense to put this album out on Candlelight. So, they've got a great history. They work really well with a lot of the UK bands as well. So it's a perfect label for us.
Oh, definitely. Now, of course, going back into the album itself, I'm very intrigued by the stories that are going on here with the Witchfinder General, and just being able to tell the stories that were told through that. I mean, where did the idea come from to be able to write an album about that?
So I've always heavily been interested in history, and our last few albums, or most of our albums, are based around sort of medieval historical facts anyway. And we reside in an area in the UK called East of England, so East Anglia, and he basically reigned supreme in that area. And it wasn't that far away from where we are. The sort of neighbouring town is where his reach extended to, but he was mainly sort of like Norfolk and Suffolk area. And I just thought that no one's really touched upon the Witchfinder General. He's been glamorized in movies. He's kind of been glamorized a little bit in old new wave of British heavy metal bands and Cathedral and stuff like that, but nobody's really sort of delved into him seriously. And we just felt, because it's kind of from where we're from, it just felt quite personal. And we felt like, this is a great subject to sing about for the album. So yeah, the concept came from that really. And I wanted to take it down a different avenue and sort of explore his mindset and how depraved and narcissistic and evil this person actually was. So each song is basically about his mindset during that period and how he felt like what he was doing was God's work, and he felt that what he was doing was right. And it just goes to show how delusional he really was, because he was a mass murderer. He potentially killed up to 500 people and condemned them to witchcraft, basically. So, these were innocent people that probably had a black cat, so they were seen as a witch, or, the local cattle got ill, so they was deemed as a witch, silly little things like that. So, yeah, this guy was insane. And it felt very fitting to do a concept based around him and, accompanying our music.
Yeah, and of course the music matches up so perfectly with it too. I mean, between your lyrics and the music behind it, it just gives a really vivid description of everything that's going on. And whether you're listening to it just for the music or for the historical content going on, there's so much to appreciate about this album, and it's worthy of so many different spins too, because you get to discover a little bit more about it. And you really get to portray it in your mind and just get that vivid imagination going, just hearing it through your lyrics.
No, that's great. I hope people get like, the depravity of Matthew Hopkins and his paranoia and his narcissism, just from the twists and turns in the music and just the way that everything is how the lyrics fit, with the music. I really do hope that they can feel the turmoil that was occurring during the 17th century, on them during them witch trials, basically.
Yeah, and I can say for myself, I can definitely hear that. And again, the music just matches up so perfectly with that. And yeah, just everything about it just is just such a really cool album, and I love it when a band really does appreciate history and wants to be able to show it off. I mean, whether it's the depravity of what's happened in the past or being able to just like foreshadow something in the future, whatever the case may be. I mean, it always makes for interesting concepts, and the fact that there's so much inspiration behind this album and so many stories you could tell within it, it's so great to see something like this come out.
Yeah, and I mean, the UK and England is rife with history. We have hundreds of years of history, most of it not good. We've done some horrible things, unspeakable things. Same with mainland Europe. A lot of horrible stuff happened. This stuff, horrible stuff happens all over the world. And each album, we've kind of looked at how humanity acts during times of crisis. And it just shows that actually the events that happened hundreds of years ago are kind of still happening today. They're just in a different context. And it just goes to show that as a species, we've not really learned from anything. We should be looking to the past and going, well, we did this and this was wrong. We went to war in World War I, World War II. We did all of this. This was wrong. We should not be repeating these things. And I feel like more history should be taught. These are events that they don't really teach these in education in schools. So you don't learn about the Witchfinder, or you don't learn about the Knights Templar, or you don't learn about you touch upon the Black Death, but you know what I mean. It's very sort of basic. But there's a lot of stuff we could learn from in the past and apply that to the future and hope to make a better world for everybody. But I think, unfortunately, as a species, we're very tribal and we're not very good at working with other people. And that's not to say bad on everybody in the world. There is some good in the world, but there is also a lot of bad, isn't there?
Uh, Especially with myself living in America, I absolutely understand what you're talking about. I mean, obviously, different circumstances and different stories, but I totally understand what you're talking about. And especially when it comes to history, I mean, the fact that there's so many places over here in this country that are trying to ban history books and trying to just scrub history from the past and make sure people in the future don't learn it. And yeah, and also when you mention the tribalism, I mean, that just it hits things so hard because it feels like everything has to be one side or the other. Like there's never a middle ground. Everyone wants to stick to just their one certain belief and not hear the other side, and it feels like that could be our demise.
Yeah, 100%. And we come into an age where, it's just a push of a button and that is the end of a lot of countries or end of the world. It's scary, really. And again, like I say, we should be looking back to the past. We shouldn't be erasing history. These things happened. These things need to be taught. People need to understand that these horrible events occurred, just so we don't do them again. But it's easier said than done, isn't it? Unfortunately.
Oh, very unfortunate, but I'm glad there's still some people like yourself that want to keep the history alive and just just being able to do retellings like this through the music. And of course, with this particular album, it's just like there's so many things you can learn about religion and the psychiatric mind and mental illness, and there's so much that goes on through it. It's went through the eyes and the mind of a serial killer who thinks he's on a righteous path. I
Yeah.
mean, when you're coming up with the lyrics for this and you're doing obviously the history research and everything like that, I mean, what's it like to go back to it and listen to it for yourself?
It's great, because obviously I immerse myself quite deeply into it. So I do a lot of research and then kind of formulate the concept and formulate the structure and what each song I'm going to sing, what I'm going to sing about topic wise. So actually going back and listening to it when it's all finalized and adopting the sort of vocals that they do, I feel like I'm taking on that persona slightly, and expressing the feelings that he would have been feeling at that time, the anger, the frustration, the paranoia. I feel like that's perhaps encapsulated in the vocal delivery. So to go back and listen to it's great, because it makes you go, actually, I feel like I've achieved what I set out to do.
And I definitely think that from my point of view as well too, because whether it's your a vocal approach, whether it's the music behind it, the lyrics, I mean everything. It really, like I've mentioned before, it really does have like a vivid description, both musically and lyrically, with everything that's going on, and the dynamics throughout the entire album. The fact that the final track, Messenger of God, has some great string accompaniment going on through it to really get some nice emotional moments going on through it. I mean, it really takes you on an adventure through all these stories. And again, I just appreciate the fact that you. I mean, it really sounds like you put a lot of time and effort into this, and it's definitely paying off.
No, that's great. Thank you. We come from sort of the generation where an album meant an album. You listen from track one to whatever to the end, and the whole album as a whole is the experience. And I know that sort of modern generation tend to like flick through a couple of singles and that's it. They don't really sort of like, absorb an album as such. I think metal is slightly different. I think metalheads will always absorb a whole album as a concept. So it was very, very important for us to feel that journey from start to end. And with Messenger of God, it is a very somber ending, and it's just kind of that reality of like this stuff actually happened, and it's the realization that when you get to the album, you go, "Oh shit, okay, this was, as you said, some deranged serial killer going around killing people in the name of God," and it just ends on a really somber note, because we felt that was actually really perfectly fitting for the album. You've got pure chaos and then just the reflection at the end.
Yeah, and again, it just makes for a great adventure when you listen to it. And I'm just like myself, I am very much an album person. I love being able to listen to it from start to finish. The only reason I listen to singles is mainly for a music video or a visual, just to see what that's all about. But anything outside of that, I like listening to the whole album experience. And there's a reason why it all goes into that. And I still love that there are bands that care that much about it to make sure that the track list is in the right order. If you're doing conceptual or thematic moments throughout the entire album, you want to make sure it's in the right order and everything makes sense. The lyrics all work together, and musically, of course, as well, with all the dynamics, the peaks and the valleys, and like you mentioned yourself, the very somber moment that comes at the end of the album. Like, you can't get that from just listening to a couple of songs. You only get that from the album experience.
You do, and it is, as you just said, it is really important. The track placement is really important. You have to have that opening track that just slaps you in the face and makes you go, okay, this is what it's going to be like. And you don't want an album to dip in the middle and people to lose interest. So you've got to like pick it back up again in the middle and throw something that's a sort of off kilter and makes them go, oh wow, I wasn't expecting this. And then you drag them back in again, and then again you slap them around the face with something else, and they just go, oh my god, where did this come from? So Black Witchery is one of the tracks that people are bringing up a lot. It just a punky number that just comes out of nowhere, and everyone's like, "Hang on a minute," and then it slows down into Frozen Fen, and people are like, "Okay, this is horrible." And then you get the somber, Messenger of God, and everyone's like, "I was not expecting this." And you get that from a lot of old albums. I mean, we grew up with Iron Maidens and that sort of era of new wave of heavy metal and the old hard rock. So every album just felt special, you know what I mean? Like, especially with Iron Maiden. I mean, they had a lot of concept albums, so it was very important about the ebb and flow of the album. But even Slayer's Rain in Blood, even though it's only 29 minutes or however long it is, it flows perfectly as an album. It gives you everything you need, and it does feel like that has maybe slightly become a lost art, but it does feel like a lot of bands are starting to pick back up on that again, which is good. I think they're realizing the importance of an album as a whole, and I think everything comes back around again, doesn't it? So I think people will start heading in that direction again.
Yeah, and I was just about to say that too. It seems like everything comes in circles and it comes in waves. So, I mean, I grew up listening to bands like that, and of course, with conceptual albums, I'm a big progressive metal fan. So, I mean, there's so many great conceptual albums that have come out from that, and there's always going to be a soft spot in my heart for conceptual albums, no matter what the style, no matter uh, anything like that. I mean, is if it can tell a great story through music, I'm vested into it, and that's exactly what's going on here with all the stories that are being told. And yeah, and I hope more bands continue to do that as well too, and just be able to explore. And of course, some bands don't need to do that; they're able to just write good songs. But if you can write a concept and it works for you, I think it's a great thing.
Definitely. Concepts are great. They're like you said, the early prog bands, Genesis and Meridian and Rush, all concept-based sort of bands. But even if you look into a different genre and you go into hip hop and rap, it's technically concept stuff. It's about they're singing about how they're living, their lifestyle. It's still a story. They're trying to tell you their story. So it's just a different type of concept, where metal is very fantastical and they'll sing about, history, or they'll sing about sci-fi, or they'll sing about fantasy and D&D and stuff like that. It's the stories are still there, you know what I mean? And it really does draw a listener in. And I just think it's great when a band does. But that also stems from sort of soundtracks as well, because they're telling a story with the music. The old Jeff Wayne's War of the Worlds soundtrack, which is incredible if you don't know it. 100% check it out to anyone that doesn't. But it tells the story of War of the Worlds, with a musical accompaniment, and it's just fantastic. So yeah, I think concept albums are ingrained in us a little bit. I think we all grew up with that kind of stuff and just really appreciate it. So and it just has a bit more weight. So it's not just 8 songs just about, I mean, this is no disrespect to any other bands, but 8 songs just about Satan, you know what I mean? It's like this is about a thing, and it just makes it a little bit more interesting for people.
Yeah, and from my point of view, I mean, you can write those songs about Satan, but I mean, if you're doing something like you're doing here and writing about real events that actually happened, I think there's a lot more evil of that than just singing about Satan.
Yeah, I mean, I love the Saint stuff, and we have done songs about Satan, like we're all for that. But like, yeah, there is something inherently evil about singing about these actual events that happened, because you just go, wow, he actually murdered 500 people, or the Knights Templar, went into the Middle East and just forced people into Christianity, and if they didn't sort of like accept it, they just went, well, fine, just kill them. It was just mass murder constantly, all in the name of God. This uniting figure that's supposed to heal the world. But yeah, it's just insane. So yeah, there is something quite evil about that, and I think because people realise that these events actually happened, and then they kind of get a bit shocked by it because they're like, oh shit, okay, we're listening to this music's cool, but wow, that's a bit deep. And we're not afraid to touch on these subjects either. We've done songs. We did a couple of singles before this, and it was one was a sort of like a bit more fantastical. So it was about the Hellhound of East Anglia. So there used to be like a beast that used to roam around and kill people, and if you saw it, you would die. But that was just kind of more folklore. And then the other track we did was basically based on the Jonestown Massacre, and just that event that happened. All again, it's all Christianity and religious related. We have that underlying theme, and again, it harks back to how people act during these times. So it just goes to show that humanity, we're just not very nice.
Oh, sadly accurate, for sure. But also thinking about that as well too. I mean, of course, musically and lyrically, there's so much to talk about, discuss. But I also want to mention visually as well too, because I love the album cover for this so much. I love the green that's used in it. I love the visionary work that's going on with it. It looks mystical. It looks evil. It just perfectly represents the album.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great. We worked quite closely with the guy that did that, and yeah, he came up with some really great results. Like you said, it just encapsulates what you're going to get. It's got that mystery to it, but also if you look a little bit deeper, you can see that there's this coven of witches, and they're all floating around and looking evil. And there's this one guy that is supposed to be stopping this, but he is probably more evil than these witches that he's condemning. So it's got a lot of deep layers to the cover, really.
Yeah, and again, that's all the more reason to check out this album, especially get the physical version of this too, and just be able to like look at the album artwork, look at everything that goes into the liner notes, the back cover, and everything, and just get those visuals to go along with it. Because when I do that, I'm able to enjoy the album more. And even when I just close my eyes and listen to the music and just those visions come in my head matching the lyrics, it's great to have a visual representation with that. And when you just look at an album cover like that, it just intrigues you.
And that's the great thing about this style of music, and the package is really important. So the visuals are really important. So with the album, like the whole layout and design has really come together and really helps sort of like formulate the idea that we're trying to put across. And like you say, you can pour through the lyrics and you can pour through the liner notes, and it just adds to the experience. I mean, I sat and listened to King Diamond's Conspiracy the other week, and I actually sat down and I got the lyrics out and I read along whilst I was listening to it because obviously King Diamond's very heavily conceptual, and it just made for a better listening experience because this you were like, right, okay, this is what the King's singing about, and it's great, and it just put a smile on my face because it was just like, yeah, King Diamond rules. More people need to listen and enjoy King Diamond, but yeah, it kind of added to that experience, and it's the same going back with Iron Maiden as well, like their covers are stunning, and you open up the layout and it just looks great, and you can read the lyrics, and it just makes for a more enjoyable experience. So yeah, for us, visuals are very, very important.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. And in speaking of King Diamond, about a decade ago, I was able to see Abigail in its entirety, and just seeing the stage show that goes along with that. It was just one of my favorite shows ever because of all the work that really goes into it visually and audibly. And I was even able to get a tapestry of alternate artwork for the Abigail cover, and I got that hanging up on my wall. And I'm so proud to be able to have something like that because I grew up with King Diamond. I love the horror stories that he tells, and it's just so vivid everything that goes into it, no matter what the story is. And
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, the fact that people are so inspired by the likes of King Diamond and Iron Maiden and still continuing on to this day, it shows how much depth there is still to be explored, everything lyrically and conceptually going on.
definitely. A lot of them bands were kind of ahead of their time, really. They were singing about stuff that a lot of bands then, the power metal genre kind of took a lot of what Maiden did and then tried to make it their own and started singing about, sort of more magical, fantastical stuff. Or, then some of it went into sort of like, Sabaton era and all the sort of like war metal and stuff. So, yeah, you tend to find that a lot of metal bands are actually quite historically or interested in historical events. Look at Thrash. I mean, Thrash is very much about that and also sort of political events. So yeah, so it is a very intellectual scene, isn't it? But there is still so much more to explore, and there's different ways to explore it as well. Just because, say for example, Cathedral did a song about Witchfinder General, it doesn't mean it has to be in the same ilk. You can just change it and tell a different side to that story because there's different sort of ways of telling these stories.
Oh, absolutely. And in speaking of that, of course, you mentioned earlier that this album has been in the works for quite some time, and it's been recorded for a while now. So, with that in mind, I mean, are you thinking of like a new ideas lyrically or thematically for the next release?
Yes. I mean, I kind of always have an idea of what I want to do. And when I did Hellfenlic, I had potentially two or three other concepts that I was interested in playing with. And then the Witchfinder General just sort of came top trumps of that. So, yeah, there are some others that I kind of still want to explore. And it's just whether it connects with me at that time as to what I will do next. But I have a few in mind, and I've kind of already started mapping out a few ideas. So I will start that process soon. It takes me a while because obviously there's a lot of research, and you've obviously got to be in the right frame of mind and in the right zone for it as well. So sometimes it does actually take me quite a while to compile the lyrics, but once I get in that pattern, then I can smash them out fairly quickly. So yeah, I kind of have loose base concept, and we have some demos for new material. So that kind of inspired me as well, because you'll get a vibe for how it's sounding. If it's just, say, for example, they're all horrible, nasty, fast, evil songs, then you kind of want a theme that's going to complement that. But yes, so the long and short is I do have some ideas for the next concept. Yes.
Oh, that's got me so excited, and I can't wait for that to happen in the future when everything comes together at the right time. And but until then, I mean, of course, there's the back catalog, and of course, the new album. And it's the fact that it's not even 2 weeks old yet for everybody else, and I've gotten to check it out for quite a bit of time. I'm just so appreciative of the fact that I've been able to really have a deep dive into this and just be able to listen to it as much as I can, really start to hear all the layers that goes into it, and just be able to have a new appreciation for it by being able to talk to you and hearing your insights into all of it. And I just want to thank you so much for taking the time to be able to talk to me about everything about this album, what to potentially look forward to in the future. Is there anything else that's going on right now or coming up that you want to talk about?
No, it's not at the moment. So obviously this is just released, as we said. So we've got some shows coming up in the UK. We're doing a couple of album launch shows, and we're playing the album in full in a couple of weeks for an exclusive performance, and then we've got a London show on Saturday where we're doing the album. So yeah, we'll just be playing, shows in support of this. We do have an idea for a sort of like interim release that we're kind of currently discussing, so that could be interesting. And then yeah, no, it's just all Hellfenlic based at the moment. We're going to look to play some shows in Europe and try and get some more tours and stuff. And you know, we want to go further afield. We'd love to come and play the States and stuff. So, if there is anybody out there that wants us, then they should contact us, and we'll happily come over to the States and play. But yeah, so that's it at the moment.
Oh, I would love to see you guys actually make it over here to the States, but until then, I'm glad some shows are being lined up and so many great things happening. And of course, also I'm so happy to see that the album is going to be played live in its entirety because all these songs feel like they would work so perfect in a live setting. And I'm glad, even if it's just once, I'm glad it's happening once and then being able to pick and choose for set lists later. That's just so cool you're able to do that.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because a lot of the songs, a fair few of them we play live anyway. We have been playing them live for a little while, but a fair few of the songs we've never actually played as a whole band. So being able to actually play them as a full band is interesting. At first it's kind of like, oh, hang on a minute, we never recorded this as a full band. You know what I mean? Like, so there are, you have some sort of difficulties to overcome, but once we got into the swing of it, we were just like, actually, you know what, these are really smooth to play and they sound great. And I think it's going to transpose really well to the live setting because we kind of, when we write songs, we don't necessarily write them. We don't sit there and go, okay, this song is just going to be an album song. You know what I mean? Like we write them with the intention to potentially play them all live. And then sometimes you might just go, okay, we played that live and maybe it fell a little bit flat. It's not kind of right for what we want. But yeah, most songs are written for the live environment. Obviously, with songs like Messenger of God, it'll have its place. It's not a song that you would actually play every show you do because it just doesn't fit. I feel like that's more bring out that for more of a special occasion. Like we have a song called The Bearer, which everybody loves, and when we do bring that out and we get the guy who originally did the violin on top, like it blows people's minds. So I think with us playing Messenger of God and getting our friend Nico, who recorded the violin on the album for us, he's going to be guesting. So that's, I think, will be a really cool experience for everybody. And also, they've had 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks to actually let the album absorb. So yeah, that should be, I think it'll be cool. Whether we'll do it again, I don't know. But if the timing is right and we feel like it, then yes, we might do another playthrough of it at some point. But yeah, this is the only one at the moment.
Oh, well, it's so cool that that is actually happening, and that will be a special show for everyone in attendance, and I imagine everyone on stage as well. And again, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to do this. Again, like I mentioned, I have a deeper appreciation for the album now, being able to get your insight into this, and just being able to talk about history like this, the state of the world now, what to look forward to in the future, and of course, the new album through Candlelight Records. Yeah, just thank you very much for taking the time. I truly appreciate it.
No worries. Thanks for taking the time to reach out to us. And like I say, playing the album, having it on repeat is great. Just goes to show that it's a good album and that people are really enjoying it. So, and it's great that people have heard us in the States. Want to reach there a lot more. So yeah, if it gets the word out there, that's all we can ask for, really.
No, absolutely. And I'm glad to help.